Hey everyone, I'm Hannah, and today I'm here with my friend Emma, and we're going to talk about sustainable fashion. Who are you, Emma, and why can you talk about this? Because I can't.
I am a consultant within sustainable fashion and a creative director. So my career's kind of evolved over the years. So I've done lots of things in that area. I ran my own sustainable style consultancy to advising brands, also creating events to kind of get people into secondhand and sustainable fashion.
Emma has been helping me along my personal journey in this area too. I feel like you're my go-to person, and I'm like, what about this?
Thanks, yeah. I do get the odd WhatsApp.
This video is going to be very much like an intro, a 101, because that's kind of where I feel like I'm at. I do like the occasional charity shop or secondhand shopping, but in the grand scheme of things, especially a lot of what I see online and a lot of people who are like in the sustainable fashion space, like making videos about it, I'm so overwhelmed.
Yeah, it can be really overwhelming.
We're gonna just start with the basics. First of all, why fast fashion bad? So we need to establish what the problem is first before we have a solution.
Sure, it's a big one. So there's so many areas of fast fashion and the fashion industry in general that are really problematic. Probably the biggest one is overproduction and how that contributes to carbon emissions, climate change. But aside from that, also the way that the fashion industry is currently set up, it's really exploitative to the people that work within the industry.
Is that fast fashion in particular because it's like the cheaper the item is, just like somewhere along that line someone is not being paid properly?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it's definitely true that most times if you find that an item is super cheap, somebody somewhere along the line is not being treated well or paid properly, or the materials being used are not being produced safely or ethically. And that's another massive area. A lot of the time, the way that fashion is produced in general, so not just exclusively to fast fashion, but in general, it's done in a way which means that it's highly polluting to kind of our environment, but also really damaging to our finite resources.
Oh my god, there's so much. So it's not just like where you buy your clothes from, it's like the material of the clothes.
Yeah,
and all of that as well.
There's so many things like dyes that are used, things that are toxic to the environment and our water resources, and
Is that like polyester? Is polyester a bad one?
Polyester's definitely a bad one.
Polyester's bad. Okay, which is basically like all of the clothes that I have ever owned as a teenager, my entire life, pretty much.
Yeah, and I think that's true of most people our age. It's something that we've all kind of grown up with, fast fashion, and so yeah, it's a really multi-layered subject. And I think at the moment people are talking about greenwashing a lot because they're...
What's greenwashing? What is greenwashing? I've never heard of this before.
Greenwashing is basically marketing that utilises the idea of sustainable fashion to sell product. But the problem with it is that, as I've said, it is quite a complex subject, and a lot of the times brands just want to get consumers and customers to buy their stuff. And now that there's more of an awareness around why we should be being more ethical and sustainable and responsible with our fashion choices,
brands are jumping on that.
Yeah, brands are jumping on the bandwagon and taking advantage, and it's kind of like they're probably not even doing their own homework in terms of their production line. And
there might be like something that they can claim, but then
but they're leaving loads of stuff out, which is really problematic.
Wow. Okay, so it's complicated, multifaceted, and just a general shit show. So we're gonna go through some potential options that are not fast fashion and the kind of pros and cons of each of those things. The easiest one, I don't know actually if it's the easiest, but the one that first came to mind is like still buying the same kind of clothes that you would already buy, but just less, and make them last longer. So what is maybe good or bad about this option?
So I think it's really good to start thinking a bit more about the way that you're doing fashion, because one of the biggest problems that we just discussed is overproduction, and that's obviously fueled by overconsumption. So if we're buying loads of clothes that we don't actually need just because they make us feel good,
it's like the chicken and the egg though. It's like, are these brands overproducing because we're overconsuming, or are we overconsuming because of the brands and the marketing?
Yeah, it's definitely...
I like to think it's the brand's fault and not human behaviour.
Like the catalyst is brands trying to get you to buy stuff, for sure. But I think that it's become clear that as people, as customers, as citizens, we actually have a lot of power to kind of change brands' behaviour. So if we do kind of take a step back with how much we're buying and we think a bit more carefully about what we actually need versus what we just feel like we want.
If they stop making money this way, then they will have to reconsider.
Yeah, exactly. It will be slow, but...
Yeah. Because I think for a lot of people, the kind of like cheap fast fashion is what they can afford as well. So there's that whole like class privilege as well that comes with being able to fork out on more expensive, durable items.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and that's why I'm such a massive advocate for secondhand, because I feel like, and that probably takes us neatly onto
second option, second hand.
Yeah, it probably takes us really neatly onto that, because secondhand is a more affordable option, if we're being honest, than probably sustainable brands that are out there for the most part. It is much more accessible in terms of where you can shop it. I think that when you start to shop secondhand or vintage, you really hone your own style rather than kind of just like shopping off the rack. So you know, like if you go into Topshop or H&M, usually you've seen a mannequin or two by the time you've got to a rail. Rails are usually like configured so that you're not actually probably really thinking and choosing the styling that you're doing. Not in the same way that you would be if you're just like going into a secondhand shop.
Just being like, what takes my fancy?
Exactly,
It's
so
different. That makes a lot of sense, because I often get sucked in by mannequins. I'm like, oh, I wish I could wear that outfit. But then realising that it's not my style at all. It just looks good on that mannequin.
Yeah.
Or like it wouldn't suit my body shape or anything like that. I think I'm more open to getting things adjusted afterwards, especially if I did buy it secondhand.
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm going to be paying full price for something and I have to get it adjusted, I'm like, what? Why am I paying full price for something that doesn't fit me properly? So I feel good often when I'm like buying secondhand, because even if it doesn't fit me perfectly then, I know that I can then make it fit me perfectly.
Yeah, and then it's going to be especially for you. Like it's basically bespoke, which is really cool as well. Yeah, it's interesting that value equation though that you do, where it's like when you buy secondhand, if it's cheaper than you would find it in a fast fashion shop or in a high street retailer, you kind of feel better about the purchase.
Yeah, there's that classic, if you compliment someone on their clothing and they're like, I got it in a charity shop for £2.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Like, I'm so guilty of that. That's like my favourite thing to do. Like, it's just such a feel-good experience because you're honing your styling skill. If you're shopping in a charity shop, you're obviously giving to a good cause. And yeah, you're basically reducing the harm that you're doing on the environment, because you're not buying new, you're not contributing to the need for overproduction, and these textiles already exist.
Yeah. What about things like Depop?
Yeah,
Depop. eBay and stuff like that, I guess.
These are other really great options, especially if you still want to kind of be in the game with having that style inspiration, then obviously Depop's a really good one, because you can follow people.
The other option, or final option, that I can think of is sustainable brands.
Yeah.
So like actually if they do tick enough of the boxes. So how the hell do we know if it's a sustainable brand? What should we be looking out for?
Yeah.
All of that good stuff. This is where I'm like, this is a minefield. I have no idea.
It is a bit of a tricky one still, because I think we're still relatively early on in this kind of idea of sustainable fashion, and sustainable brands are popping up all of the time. But like I said, you have to be kind of careful and you have to do your own research. I know. There's no easy answer, I'm afraid. But you remember I sent you the app.
Good for you, good on you.
Good on you. Yeah, when you asked me a couple of questions. So there's this really cool app that I use, and it's called Good on You. And basically you can type in any brand and then it will come up with the credentials. So it will be environmental credentials. It will talk about how they look after their people. So whether it's fair wage, fair trade, and also things that are even in more detail, so things like what kind of materials they're using and whether they're certified, so whether it's like organic cotton certified, that kind of thing. I've got quite a high bar because I work in the sector and I know too much. Basically, I know too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's good because you can decide what's important to you. And
so one of my issues with sustainable fashion brands is that it's so expensive.
yeah,
But is that the price that you pay?
Yeah, the reality is that for a long time we've been kind of what's the word? We've kind of been duped into thinking that things are cheap and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
That's how
But
much
someone
it
is
costs.
suffering for it to be cheap.
Yeah, the reality of the situation is usually somebody's either not being paid correctly, conditions for workers are not very good at all. That's why things are cheap.
Yeah. What about underwear?
It's a good question.
Because I'm not going to buy underwear secondhand.
No. Fair. I tend to buy underwear in materials that I think are sustainable materials. So I buy my underwear bamboo.
Bamboo. Ooh.
Yeah, because that's a sustainable resource in the scale of, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just more about looking at materials for things that you can't buy secondhand. And then there's the great debate of exercise clothes because I think that's another one that's kind of tricky. Do you buy secondhand exercise stuff sometimes?
No, I haven't.
I'll buy the tops.
Yeah.
But I don't tend to buy trousers secondhand just because I work out quite a lot.
The sweat, you know, the sweat and the wear.
Yeah, the wear is a massive issue for me.
It's an interesting one because I feel like bras for me as well, I'm already really limited on where I can get bras from that fit me. So restricting myself even more, I'm like, in that area, I'm just like, no.
I think that's
But there's definitely an improvement that I can make in other areas.
Yeah. Don't try to do everything all at once. It's overwhelming.
So what's your hierarchy then of like the best thing to do and then like still good? We're not judging here, by the way, with this hierarchy. Just
no
so everyone
judginess.
knows. No judgment here.
Yeah, no judgment at all. And this is just what I do. And I've been doing this and working in this area for a really long time. As I say, I know too much. So
yeah, it's like when everything is like ruined for you. You're like, oh, I can't watch rom-coms anymore with your feminist goggles on. You're like, ugh.
So what do I do? So basically, first of all, I always shop my own wardrobe. And that's really about what we talked about in terms of thinking about how you style things. Because I used to run a style consultancy called Back of the Wardrobe.
Yes.
I have basically spent a lot of time teaching people how to create new looks from their existing clothing that they have in their wardrobe.
I feel like I get really overwhelmed when I'm in that position, and that's why I do a clear out. And so I do not have like a capsule wardrobe by any means, but I feel like I know every item.
Second thing, if I really want something new, I feel like I want something for an occasion or whatever it is, I will shop secondhand first and foremost. So that will be, I like to get out to the shops just because that's the way I am. I like to touch and feel things.
I like to try stuff on as well.
Because when I go into a shop, I don't sort of look at sizes. I just look at colours and prints because I know I'm attracted to, as you can probably tell,
colours and prints.
Yeah, like
colours and prints.
I like colours and prints. I like loud things, and I like really interesting textures. So I'm sort of drawn to those things. I'll go for them, and then kind of assess whether I'll be able, like you said, to take something in, or whether I can just make it work with a belt, whatever it might be. And then if I really feel like I can't find a specific thing that I'm looking for, then I will shop either a sustainable or ethical brand, or I will rent. I'm really into rental at the moment.
What kind of companies do you rent from in the UK? Because I'm a bit obsessed with Rent the Runway, but they're US only, and
They are coming.
They are coming?
They're coming.
When?
I mean, I don't work for them.
When? As soon as Rent the Runway comes to the UK, it's going to change the game for me, because I will happily pay like £100 a month.
Subscription.
I will pay that subscription just to like be able to like rotate and rent clothes throughout the month.
So I'm going to slightly burst your bubble.
No!
The thing
I don't want to know too much.
Okay.
No, go on.
The thing is about Rent the Runway is they have a massive inventory of clothing. So if you think about overproduction in the same way as kind of having a massive inventory where you're constantly getting more things in to provide for customers who want to just scroll, it's kind of the same game and the same feeling, and it has the same problem attached to it. Whereas there's other rental companies in the UK right now. So On Loan is one, which is subscription based. So you pay, I think it's like £70 or £69 a month for I think it's 2 items for that subscription. And it's cool because they have a limited inventory, but you get a stylist who gives you an edit. So basically...
Hello.
Hello! Yeah, it's really cool. It's cool because you tell them about your style, and then they give you an edit, and it's only... I think it's about 6 items in the edit. So already it's more considered.
Yeah.
It's a much more responsible way of doing rental. And then you choose your items. You don't do any scrolling for ages. So you're kind of getting out of that mindset. Do you know what I mean?
Because that's like what we were talking about at the beginning of a different way of thinking about fashion.
Exactly, yeah. And most times you're probably going to be totally thrilled with those pieces that you get.
It's like choice theory.
Yeah.
Where you're going to be the most happy with the choice that you make if you are given 3 options. Like 3 is apparently the magic number. Any more than that, then you'll always be dissatisfied with what you picked because you're like, the grass is greener. And this applies to like fashion, but like shampoo and also romantic and sexual partners. I think this is why like our grandparents have been together for decades and decades and decades, because the pool was limited, and now with apps and stuff you're like, oh, but there's probably someone better.
Yeah, it's so true. So yeah, that's cool. And also you've got peer-to-peer. I don't know if you...
Okay, no.
So peer-to-peer is where it would be like you and I renting each other's clothes.
Oh, but is it like...
But we might not know each other.
Oh, okay, so it's not just like borrowing your mate's clothes.
No,
it's
I'm
like an
paying for it.
official thing.
Yeah, so it's basically a platform where you can upload pieces in your wardrobe that maybe you're not wearing right now, and then I could go on and rent those pieces.
Oh my god, it's like The Holiday but for clothes.
Yeah. I love how everything is a romantic or sexual reference for you.
Yeah, this is how I understand the world.
Yeah. It is exactly like that.
Yeah.
Except we don't get to stay in each other's houses, and
But you
we probably
do
don't
get to
new
stay in
boyfriends
their
at the end of
clothes.
it.
Well, you never know. The new outfit might...
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so peer-to-peer. But you have to manage that, I guess. So that's kind of like a downside of it, of you having to take the photos.
At the moment, on the platforms I've tried, you can choose to rent and not, as in be a loaner and not a renter, or be a renter and not a loaner.
So it doesn't have to be a direct swap.
No, it doesn't. No.
Okay, right.
And also you're earning money, so whilst there's a downside, it's like anything you earn money from, you have to put a little bit of work into, right? Washing your clothes less is a really good way of kind of...
Making them last longer.
Yeah, making them last longer, but also stopping microplastics from getting into the water system. But you can use a guppy bag.
What's a guppy bag?
A guppy bag is a bag that you can put your clothes into before you put them in the washing machine that captures the microplastics.
And is that specifically for like polyester items? You wouldn't have to put like all of your clothes in it necessarily.
If you're using if you're washing natural fabrics, natural fibre fabrics, then yeah, you wouldn't need to use it.
What is a natural fibre fabric?
So it's basically a fabric that is made from natural fibres. So it's something that is not made from petroleum, which is what polyester comes from.
Right.
So there's also a Facebook group, which is really, really cool, called the Slow Fashion Exchange. And I use that to find out loads of tips and information. It's just basically a sharing hub, and people swap their clothes. So sometimes people will put up requests saying, oh, I really need a dress for a wedding, or I need a winter coat and I'm in, I don't know, Watford or whatever. And people genuinely just swap things and swap advice and give information about ethical and sustainable brands or like events.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really useful.
Oh, I love that.
It's a good community.
Yeah. Also, this weekend in London, from today, I think. Yeah, from today... over the weekend is this event called Love Not Landfill in Seven Dials. What is Love Not Landfill?
So Love Not Landfill is a campaign that I co-produced, which is basically, it's all about loving secondhand clothing, and it promotes secondhand in these beautiful spaces that are created for people to go and hang out, shop secondhand curated collections by influencers. So it's kind of cool because if you like any of these influencers' style, you can pretty much guarantee that collection's going to be like evocative of their style.
Yes. I went to a Love Not Landfill event last December and bought so much stuff that I still wear a lot.
We had a bit of a riot, didn't we?
We did. So we'll leave links in the description for you to check that out. And also just like links to all of the stuff that we've mentioned. Oh, also, of course, all of Emma's links are in the description too. Go follow her on Instagram. Thank you so much, Emma, for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having me
With us. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and let us know what you think in the comments, and like what you do if you're like trying to be a bit more sustainable with the way that you buy clothes. And don't forget to subscribe because I make new videos every week. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Bye!